Welcome and thank you for downloading the Microsoft GDPR Detailed Assessment at gdprbenchmark.com. This assessment is intended to assist organizations in assessing their GDPR compliance process. A workshop supported by the GDPR Detailed Assessment typically serves different objectives. First, get a common understanding of the GDPR compliance objectives of the organization. Secondly, assess the GDPR maturity level of the organization by use of the toolset. And thirdly, create a GDPR compliance roadmap with prioritizations, actions, and next steps. When you've downloaded the GDPR Detailed Assessment Toolkit, you will see that there are different documents. The first one is a delivery guide. It describes preparations, activities, timelines, and materials that you can use to conduct a GDPR assessment workshop. There's also different presentation templates that can support this workshop. And then there's the actual GDPR assessment tool. The first one is an Excel sheet that contains over 150 questions that help assess GDPR maturity, and also a Power BI file with an automated report template providing insights and recommendations. Now let's take a look at the assessment input tool. And for this part, we open the Excel file. Now, Microsoft recommends partners and customers to approach the regulation by focusing on an overall set of key controls and capabilities. And these can be summarized by 4 vital areas: discover, manage, protect, and report. And all the questions in the assessment tool are divided over these 4 areas. In the discover section, we will identify what personal data you have and where it resides. The manage part looks at the governance of how personal data is used and accessed. The protect area assesses the establishment of security controls to prevent, detect, and respond to vulnerabilities and data breaches. And lastly, the report part assesses how an organization executes on data requests, reports data breaches, and keeps the required documentation. As you can see, there are 162 questions in this questionnaire, and all these 162 questions relate to the different articles in the GDPR regulation. Now, you can get access to these questions by expanding the list on the left. And as you can see, each question, or let's say number of questions, has a link to the recommended responder, so the person that is most likely to answer these questions, so in this case the Chief Information Security Officer, but also the related GDPR reference, in this case Article 15. And the only thing that you have to do is review these questions and then just answer yes, no, or not applicable. I'll enter a few yeses, I'll enter a few no's, and maybe go to one of the other subsets. I'm going to report, same system, yes, yes, no. And you see the number of questions that still needs to be filled in, going down with every answer that I give. Now, each question has a specific weighing that counts towards the maturity score and stage. So the more no's I enter, the level of GDPR readiness stays the same, and of course the more yeses I answer, there's an increase in maturity. But this is something that I will explain you in a second. Now let's take a look at the visualization of the results. And Power BI is the principal visualization solution for the Microsoft GDPR Detailed Assessment. And the Power BI file that comes with the Microsoft GDPR Detailed Assessment is an out-of-the-box solution that will automatically generate charts and insights. Now, to open the document that is part of the toolkit, which you can see here, you will need to have Power BI Desktop installed. If you don't have the solution, you can download Power BI on powerbi.microsoft.com. Of course, I have it installed on my PC, so I just click on the desktop document. And as you can see, it will open immediately a visualization of the tool. So here you see the Power BI document that visualizes the results of the questionnaire. Now, in order to integrate the results of the questionnaire in this dashboard, we need to have a data connection. To do that, we go to File, go down to Options and Settings, Data Source Settings, and there change data source. We go and find the document, the Excel sheet that I showed earlier, and here it is. I open it and press Apply Changes, and now all the information will get synced into this visualization solution. So at the first Executive Summary tab of the visualization, you see where the organization is on its maturity journey. You see the little blue dot here, and the little blue dot says that we're actually starting, which is normal as we only filled in about 10 of the questions. Now, already based on what we've put in, there are already 6 recommendations based on our input. So you remember that here and there I put no as an answer, and now based on those no's, there are different recommendations. Now we can go one level deeper in this executive summary and press on the second tab here. And here you can see where we are on a maturity level in each of those 4 areas. Now, in order to show progress, I'm going back to my Excel sheet and just going to answer a few more questions. So a few no's here. Again, expanding here. No, 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 and maybe add a few more no's. A few more yeses here. Yes, 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 and then just save the file. Now I'm going back to my Power BI dashboard and I hit the refresh button. So now, based on what I put in the Excel file, you immediately see that there are additional recommendations to improve the maturity. Now, the visualization gives you a good overview of the overall GDPR maturity together with a list of recommendations. So in this first step, the executive summary displays the customer GDPR maturity in one of 3 stages, which you can see here, whether a company is in the starting phase, the progressing stage, or the optimization phase. We see here that we are still in the starting phase, which is normal, as we didn't fill in all the questions and we answered a number of questions with a no. We also see on this tab the total number of possible recommendations to follow, which is 14 based on our answers, and what the customer's overall maturity stage means. And this is the explanation over here. Now, the second tab displays the customer's GDPR maturity and number of recommendations to follow for each of the focus areas. It also lists the sub-scenarios with foundational capabilities to focus on, and a description of the customer's maturity stage for each team. Now, one of the foundational capabilities here you see is the data protection and privacy by design and default. There's more information about this focus area in tab P1, as you can read out here. So let's go to tab P1 to see what it is about. When we go to this tab, you can immediately see what top recommendation is for this focus area, but also what the Microsoft product families are you can consider to accelerate the maturity in this domain. So on each of these tabs, you get a display of the customer GDPR maturity for a specific sub-scenario or a team, and they also include a description and related GDPR reference, which you can read out here, as well as the highest priority recommendation and recommended Microsoft products that can help improve maturity for the specific sub-scenario. And when we go entirely to the right of this dashboard, we can see the All Recommendations tab. And this tab includes the full list of recommendations for the customer, grouped by sub-scenario and GDPR maturity stage. In conclusion, the Excel and Power BI file can already help you today to get a feel of your GDPR maturity. Now, this tool is not to be used to certify compliance, but instead highlights tools and concepts that can be used to support a customer's journey towards compliance. We hope this video has given you some insights on how the GDPR detailed assessment tool could serve your GDPR journey. We do advise customers to work with one of our partners or Microsoft services if they want to use the toolkit to assess their overall GDPR maturity. Thank you, and don't forget to visit gdprbenchmark.com for more info and supporting documents.